It's an honor and privilege to share this experience with you this evening. I need to thank, obviously, Ricky, who's not here right now, Heidi from the embassy, Ariana, for hosting us this evening and having me speak. And it's always good to come back to Israel, and this is clearly the cheapest way to do that. So very nice. I served the 202nd Battalion in San Juan, and the truth is I was really never supposed to be a paratrooper. My poor eyesight should disqualify me from infantry, and for a while it actually did. But on draft day, I told the doctor that my profile is low because I have flat feet, not because I have poor eyesight. And to be sure, he put me through a full exam, and Hashem only knows how we did not see the context on my eyes. And then he ended up saying, okay, you can go into infantry. And to become a paratrooper is not an easy thing also. You must complete a 2-day tryout full of physical and mental challenges. One morning we wake up at 4 a.m., and for the next 6 hours, we have to, although this would be something that's not so difficult as your service goes on, we would have to run, crawl, hold sandbags over our heads. We had to have 20 guys get over a 10-foot wall using nothing but a wooden pole, a tire, and an oil drum, and then obviously crawling and crawling some more. And after bruising my body, cutting my arms and my limbs, and lying to an IDF doctor, all just to become a paratrooper, my parents' response, Daniel, aren't you afraid of heights? And I am afraid of heights. But the drive to become an IDF, the drive to fight for the Jewish people, to join the Israeli Defense Forces and to become a paratrooper was far more powerful and more fundamental than any apprehension I could possibly have by jumping from a plane. And unlike many young Americans, including some who are sitting right here, I did not grow up in a very Zionistic home with dreams of becoming an Israeli soldier. I went to public school and not Jewish school, although every weekend I still had multiple bar and bat mitzvahs. And instead of going to Jewish day camp, I played baseball. But as a Jew, I always knew I had some sort of abstract connection with Israel, but preferred to keep it at an objective distance, something I could study to satisfy my own intellectual and academic curiosities, but really nothing more. It was not until my senior year in college at the University of Illinois that I developed a connection with Judaism, and of course with Israel. I began to learn about Jewish history and philosophy. I studied the Torah and Halacha with my rabbis at the Hillel and the Chabad there. And I first visited Israel, like many people, with my brother on birthright. I was suddenly able to see, smell, and touch the land I'd always studied. During Kabbalat Shabbat at the Kotel, I sang Yedi Nefesh, with its hauntingly beautiful tune full of yearning. I stood in silence in the desert, with nothing but the sky overhead and the stars, and Am Yisrael Chai in my thoughts. I surveyed mines and tank traps in no man's land between Israel and Syria. I began to understand why this land is important, not only to the Jewish people, but also to myself. Birthright, however, did not convince me to join the IDF. Instead, it was something my grandmother asked me. One of 6 children, she fled Poland before the war, but 4 of her siblings did not survive. Shortly after my trip, she asked me, how will your generation remember what happened when my generation is gone? What will you do? I thought about that. What will you do? I thought about that for a long time. For months, I toyed with the idea of joining the IDF, but never really seriously. I thought of dozens of reasons why I should not do it, why I should not go over to Israel and enlist and join. I had prospects of going to law school, maybe my desire to work for the U.S. government. I could not leave my family, my friends, my country, which I love so much, and do all of that for simply a brief service in the Israeli Defense Forces. I also thought of a few reasons why I should serve. Why? Because I was looking for an adventure after college. Maybe I really did want to make Aliyah one day. And also, I don't want to be stuck in a desk job for the foreseeable future. But really, it came down to one reason. That's how can I not? How can I not fight back when there's so many people in the world who not only do not like that Jews exist, but don't want us to exist? How can I not, when over 1,000 Jews who suddenly fear for their lives in Paris make Aliyah because they thought they'd be safer in Israel, a nation that was at war and taking rockets in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and they would be safer there than in France? How can I not do my part to ensure that the Jewish people have a safe place to go, and my people are home? So I decided to fight for the Jewish people. To enlist as a volunteer and become a paratrooper, despite my fear of heights, I decided if commanders, male and female, 4 or 5 years my junior, make me do push-ups or sprint across base and yell at some rocks if they spoke too much English. Because I was older, bigger, and stronger than my peers, and I was full of rabak, like a warrior's energy and spirit, I was assigned a heavy machine gun and taught to shoot it by a girl who probably weighed less than the gun itself. And most importantly, I decided to commit myself to a greater purpose. But I didn't always feel that way. One evening, towards the end of basic training's war week, We stopped on the side of a hill, and exhausted, I sat down and I started to nod off. And in my quasi-dreamlike state, I could have sworn I was back home in my bed in Chicago. But after a few moments, I heard snoring to my side, and I realized my machine gun partner was lying there curled up next to me. And it was 3 a.m. in the Judean desert, and I was far, far away from home. And I hadn't slept or showered in 4 days. Another time farther along my service, my company just received our fighter's pin for completing a year of training. Everyone's family was at that ceremony. Everyone was giving them food, care packages, and really most importantly, hugs and kisses. But for the lone soldiers, we didn't have that. All we had was each other. The best piece of advice I received before joining the Army was from a soldier on my birthright trip. He told me, Daniel, there will be times when you want to quit and you want to go home. But you must remember why you are here. You remember those reasons, and you'll be fine, you'll persevere. And there were times that certainly confirmed my desire to be a soldier. I spent Rosh Hashanah in 2011, 3 years ago, with my platoon patrolling Yishuvim in the West Bank, protecting them against potential terrorist infiltrations. Another time was in Hebron, standing 100 meters from the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs, making sure Jews were safe on the way to Shabbat prayers. Yet there was one moment in particular that reinforced why I was there. It was on October 19, 2011. My brigade had just finished our final massage we spoke about, a 15-hour, 70-kilometer hike to Ammunition Hill in Jerusalem to receive our Red Berets. As a heavy machine gunner, I was carrying probably 70% body weight. Not always fun, but you have to do what you have to do. And as we stood in formation against the setting sun, Hatikva played over the loudspeaker. Though I always knew the words, this time it was different. I did not sing Liyot Zamkovshi, to be a free people, responsibly this time. I no longer required a translation to recall the meanings of these words. I now said them as an active participant in our great story, in our phenomenal reality. I realized that Hatikva, the hope, is not just a song for Eretz Israel, but instead it is a yearning of all of Klal Israel. The paratroopers, we have two mottos. One is Pan Tzadkan to Meet Tzadkan. Once a paratrooper, always a paratrooper. And though I was discharged 2 years ago, I've never stopped fighting for Israel, for the Jewish people, and I never will. I always carry the badge and IDF soldier with me, the knowledge and experience that comes with standing on the border between Israel and her enemies. And I continue to guard that line in the sand, but now through writing, advocating, and sharing my story, which makes my mother very happy. The second paratrooper motto is Acharei, after me. I joined the IDF to do my part to help the Jewish people. I hope this event and our stories here tonight inspire you all to do the same. You can stand up and be a leader and a voice. Whether you work in the Jewish community or not, or you can always be an advocate to helping discuss Israel and Zionism. You can educate others and question those who let emotion trump reason. And most importantly, collectively, we cannot forget those who continue to stand on that line, vigilantly defending our most sacred place. We must keep Achinu Kol Beis Israel in our thoughts. We must remember Max Steinberg, Sean Carmelli, Michael Levine, and all the other lone soldiers who have given the last full measure of devotion. Thank you.